for those that are joining us in Zoom and the YouTube channel, and then also on Channel 2. And for those that are joining us in person, thank you all so much. You all are consistent as well. Good seeing you. Good seeing you again. Yeah. So would like to go ahead and officially call what is our last on the books meeting. Commissioner Kellum, how you feel?
I'm good.
No, you trying to see? Yeah. We got a good crowd on Zoom. So we will go ahead and call our time to order. My name is Stephanie Smith, and it has been a really great learning experience, an opportunity for me to serve as chair of this redistricting commission. I also show up in my life in this space in the community as a business owner, a parent, a wife, and a concerned and active citizen. And so I'm excited to be able to leverage those experiences. I also am a representative of the 1st District. So we'll go through introductions. Commissioner Llewellyn, if you'd like to.
Oh, yes. Hello. My name's Chris Llewellyn, and I represent the 6th District. I've lived in the 6th District the majority of my life. I grew up around 120th near Avila College. I went to Martin City Elementary. Spent the second half of my life in the Brookside neighborhood, where I own 3 small businesses with my brother. We own Lou's Grill and Bar and The Well in Waldo, as well as Charlie Hooper's Bar and Grill in Brookside. I'm also an avid commercial real estate investor and own several small pieces of property in and around the greater Kansas City area. This is one of 3 boards that I sit on with the city. I also sit on the Alcohol Board Advisory Group with Kansas City, Missouri, as well as the Waldo CID. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. My name's Reed Day. I grew up in Southland, Kansas City, and now live in the kind of the central part of the 6th District. Pretty much lifelong, except for a little bit time away, and came back to make Kansas City my home. I am an attorney in town, and that's about it for me, Pedro.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Llewellyn, what's your favorite committee you sit on?
I know.
Well, I think this one probably because it's over.
And that came from the heart, so we're going to believe that one.
My name is Pedro Zamora. I'm the Executive Director for the Hispanic Economic Development Corporation, a lifelong 4th District resident, Kansas Cityan. This has been a great experience to watch this activity take place. I am also glad it's over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Mike Kellum, 1st District representative. Lived in the Northland 1st District for about 8 years now. Grew up in the Northland area most of my life, with the exception of a small stint I spent in Texas, and I work for an engineering firm here locally. And I too am glad that this is nearing its end, and I think we've done a lion's share of work at a very short amount of time, so appreciate everybody's commitment to that.
Wow.
And I'll just pass it on from there. Thank you.
Thank you. And you were correct. Welcome. I'm glad to see you.
It's so good. I apologize for being late, and I dug a tie out of my closet just to buy some grace. So I am Martin T. Rucker II. I am the 2nd District representative. I've been a Northlander for about 6, 7, 8 years, somewhere in there. Small business owner in the community, devoted public servant, and it's been an honor and a pleasure to serve on this commission.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kokethia Hill. I am representing the 5th District. I'm a native of Kansas City. I am the CEO of Black KC, which is an education nonprofit here locally. I'm the former councilwoman for the 5th District and currently serve on the City Planning Commission. So I am equally excited that this process is wrapping up, but also sad that I won't be able to engage with you all every Wednesday. You've been a consistent partner. I'm going to miss you all. So thank you.
My name is Quentin Adams. I'm a third district representative of the committee, lifelong resident of the third district, and I am like everybody else. I'm glad this task has come to an end, but it was I guess a learning process, and I think a very productive uh, endeavor, and look forward to working with you all in the future sometime. Hopefully, we can get well, it probably won't be a different commission, but hopefully there'll be a commission appointed to review the charter to address some of the issues that we had difficulty addressing during this process.
Thank you. And you're gonna miss us too? Did you already say that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, that's the ticket.
What do you say?
My name is Vicki Notice. I'm a native of Kansas City, Missouri also. I grew up in Waldo. I am an architect and urban planner with a private practice consulting firm, and I've spent about half my career in the public sector and about half in the private sector, which has been an interesting balance to look at things from a lot of different perspectives. And I also want to echo the fact that this has been a really great commission. I think I've served on a bunch of these things, and this has been one of the better ones and better chaired, I might add, than any other one I've been on. So I want to thank everybody for the time they've taken, but the staff has done an incredible job, and they often don't
Absolutely.
get the credit for how complicated this process is and how responsive they've been. So thank you. We're winding up, and I'll miss everybody too.
Thank you so much. And that was 2 rounds of applause for the staff. So I hope you receive it. You too, Emily. Thank you for the support. So if you have been along with us, or if this is your first time, we always like to start out just really a reminder of why we are here and who we are and our task and what has been guiding us in this process. And so it's important that we finish strong in this. And so, each of us have taken our turn in communicating this, because it's important that the various ways that we communicate it are the various ways that people understand it. And so in our last time, does anybody want to take this on?
You might want to save that for you.
Martin did the best job.
Martin always,
Looking right at me.
Martin's the best.
he is the best.
So we are the redistricting commission tasked with redrawing the councilmanic district lines for the city of Kansas City. This is a process that has to be done once a decade after the census is done and we've received that data. It's typically a 9-month process. It was condensed this time into a 9-week process due to the delay of receiving the census results due to COVID-19 pandemic. We have a few guidelines that we have to stay within when drawing our lines, and one of them is a 10% variance, so we try to keep each district roughly the same population-wise. The law allows for a 10% variance from the largest district or the most heavily populated to the smallest district. We have to comply with the Voting Rights Act and not intentionally drawing minorities out of a district where they have a majority and opportunity to have representation. They have to be compact and contiguous, meaning that they have to touch. They cannot skip over a district and be counted as another district. And this council placed some special emphasis on trying to make sure that everyone was represented and voices are heard throughout the city.
Thank you. Great job. Appreciate that. As we continue through our agenda, just wanted to acknowledge any media or engagement meetings or requests. One particular one, I know that KCUR was able to reach out to both Commissioner Notice and I, and that was on Monday. That I was able to join in, also with Lynn, who did an amazing job, just being able to give an overview as she has been observant and thoughtful in this process and watching us, and so was able to have a conversation. And so thank you to that media outlet. In addition, we also acknowledged that there were a couple of editorials and articles, I believe through the Beacon and then also the Kansas City Star. Are there any other media or engagements that have occurred since our last time?
I do have a request to attend one on December 7th with the business unit of the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, good, thank you. And there is a request, and I'm not sure if it's actually related to the redistricting, but I'll be sure to note that with Melissa once I read it. I just glimpsed over it. Any others? And this is a really great time to thank all of our community partners, organizations, home association leadership, and just community members that absolutely took advantage of the invitation to invite any and all, without breaking quorum, to come to your respective events to help in demystifying this process and to communicating what is happening. So thank you so much to our fellow neighbors who have absolutely taken us up on that offer and has really extended the opportunity for our community to be more proximate to this process and to understand. As we look at our timeline, this is exciting. We put out this timeline at the end of October to help us get move with precision as we close out. And here we are on December 1, and our task today is really centered in reviewing and confirming the presentation. We want to finalize key points. I want to thank the commissioners who were able to share, to articulate writtenly your thoughts. Super thorough. I really appreciate that. That has been very helpful. And so we'll have some time to make sure we do that again today. At our last week's meeting, Commissioner Hill, Dr. Hill, reminded us and encouraged us about our one voice as a commission, that we have been in this process together, really having really great generative dialogue and even discourse, which is really healthy. It's part of, we are representations of our fellow community members, and so we know there's various thoughts about this process and the end game. So thank you all in it. And with that, we stand in support and solidarity of our decision, even if we disagree. And we want to make sure that the presentation even articulates the concerns or some of the disputes for the selected map. So we want to make sure that we are responsible with that information that we heard, including, to Commissioner Adams' point, the recommendation that the council considers a charter review, as we know that will be helpful. So with that, I want to toss it to Cal to walk us through the presentation.
So real quick before I get started, I apologize. Today I have to leave at 5, so I'll hopefully get you guys in a good spot. Hopefully we're pretty close at that point too. But what we are going to walk through real quick is the presentation we ran through at the end of the meeting. And then there's some places where you guys will want to fill in or reorder some slides. The machine I'm working off of right now is not the best, so probably won't do it on the fly. We'll try to dialogue or track all of those so we go forward. So there's things you want to discuss, things you want to change, reorder, but I'm first going to run through it and just consider it as we go.
And Cal, as you prep that, one of the things that I'll be looking at as we take a look at this is, is to make sure that we continue to follow the pattern that we put in. And I invite you to be co-presenters in this with me. And so as we think about slide designation, if there's a particular slide, there are some initial ones that I've already earmarked, but I want to make sure that there is space for your respective voices if you are going to be available on that day. And as you can see, the date was added to the email. The time has been given to us. It is December the 7th during the legal committee.
Yes, and one minor change, that will be at 1 p.m. instead of 12:30.
Thank you. So as we think about the assigning the slides, we want to just keep that in mind if you're available to actually join us. And I believe it is in part. It's going to be in person.
Yes.
Can somebody tell us who the members of that committee is?
I can if you give me 1 second.
Who the members are, I say members.
Yes.
I
We
do
would
know
wish.
Heather McManus, Heather Hall off the top of my head. Mayor Pro Tem McManus, Heather Hall off the top of my head.
Like Boo as well.
Yeah,
Yes,
I believe
Boo
it's a
as well.
four-person.
Oh, lawyers is just, no, you
And
said
Lee
McManus,
Barnes,
you said
I believe.
Hall,
Yes,
McManus.
Hall is on that committee as well.
Boo, I think Barnes on that committee. I
Barnes,
think.
yep.
Barnes is on that committee.
I'll ask you all to restate that. It was about 5 voices.
I'm pulling up the roster right
Thank
now.
you. And so, yeah, so if you can keep that in mind, the second session that we have been invited to present at is at the the council business meeting, and that is on Thursday, December the 9th at 2:00. Yes.
I do have it up from the website, and it is Andrea Boo, Heather Hall, Mayor Pro Tem McManus, and Councilman Barnes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily.
So as we're looking at the slides, what I tried to put together was a basis for you guys to have a voice going forward. If there's things you want to add, don't want to add, that's fine. Please make this yours as we go forward. You guys will be the people that are talking toward this and probably not staff. So
Cal, do you have the version that Melissa and I gave updates to?
I do not.
Okay.
If you guys want to send it to me, we can work from that. Or if you've got a thumb drive, I can put it on that.
I can send it to you right now, Kyle.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, please.
what if you can be at one meeting but not the other? Do you want us to just hold off and let folks select what slides?
No, I think we can just adapt as
Okay.
many voices as we can have.
Okay.
I would welcome that. So if you can, somebody will pick up the slack, right? This is a good team. Or we can switch off depending on the number of slides.
Just sent it over, Kyle.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Zamora?
Team effort.
That's right. And, never mind. I'll just say. So, the preview to this, is, and thank you again, Cal, for putting some of the key components, where what we can expect is that I will, open up the presentation. We'll go through an introduction, of us all, similarly how we do at the beginning of our meetings. That's roughly slide 1 and 2. And then, Cal, one of the things that we got really great feedback on, and maybe there can be an abbreviated portion or not, but is the overview, the history of redistricting. So move that up. And then we can then move to the guiding principles and then really get into some of the other key points of data that drove us to our decision.
I will push the button from this point forward if you guys want to drive through your edits.
Okay.
This slide really just shows who was involved. We tried to stress right up front that one of the primary key members in this was the engaged public. We could all do this, but it doesn't become a community effort unless we engage them. That's why they're right up top.
Yep.
The rest are you guys and the city staff who participated. These photos on the side are from the Zoom meetings. Sorry, I moved away from the mic for people. Should be almost everybody in this room. There's Beth's hand, and then in the middle. We also made sure we added Mr. Brian Wise, who did the majority of the mapping for us. So, have Law look at this one as well. We took their information, cut it down quite a little bit so it could fit on the slide, but wanted to make sure everyone knew these were the driving forces. In the red is the portion of the charter that suggests why our time was abbreviated. And the rest are just those key points to consider best practices or legal portions of redistricting. In addition, these are the meetings that we met. We had 12 of those. The ones in green are the public meetings we had. Over to the right of that shows you what the process was in 2011 and what it is in 2021. So it just shows you the compressed nature of the time that you guys had to work through a very complicated process. We also wanted to make sure that we kind of detailed the process you guys helped us walk through. All of those elements that were involved in it, the additional public engagement that we made sure we included in this one that may or may not have been involved in previous ones.
Kyle, can I just, on the timeline, can we note that we did take a vote that we felt all comfortable about the timeline we had to work under,
That we agreed to move
agreed.
within that
within that timeline.
compressed time?
Yeah. I think that's important.
Sure.
Because there are a couple comments in the feedback sections here talking about the timelines. We all know that through the pandemic, we had a condensed time. We had late data, and we all agreed to work fast and diligent to get where we were at.
Would you like to take that slide 3? I mean, slide 4. I believe that's slide 4. We may have
I
to.
guess I spoke up, I guess. It's automatic, isn't it?
Can you, let me see, yes, it is slide 4, which outlines the redistricting process. Would that be an appropriate slide that you can then talk about that? Because that talks about, and this, the comparative analysis from the 9 months to the 3.5. Okay, so we'll get Commissioner Zamora.
And generally what that chart on the side shows is that in a regular process, the data would be available to most on January, but it wouldn't be the redistricting information that you guys need. And then normally we would get it at the start of the second quarter, which is April-ish, and we'd have about 9 months to work through. In this cycle, due to delayed from COVID and other things, we got it in August. So we basically had 3.5 months or 9, as we've said all along, 9 months normally, and this time you guys were forced to work under a 9-week time period. So that's what the slide shows. The considerations you guys had up front about that time period and working through it would be a great time to talk about it.
Thank you.
Once again, this just talks about all the public engagement that we did, other than just having these meetings. These look at we actually made 41 different maps through it that you guys had to consider at some way. We looked at historical data. We didn't just look at the maps. We looked at the growth patterns. We looked at where people lived, where they transitioned from, and then also, as we always would, just census data. So this is really just trying to paint the picture of what the process looks like. These.
Can I go back? Can I comment on now, or make a
Please.
suggestion, or you wait till the end?
No,
Whatever you want.
we can do this, because
with
I
the-
also like to know which slides you all are interested in.
Okay, with the data, you said the pattern analysis. Does that show I can't see good here, is that the housing? I mean, the demographic ethnicity
Yep.
data?
So it's the two that are orange and red, or looking at the
Racial
Black
and
the
cultural.
the congregations of ethnic or racial areas, and the one that has the purple on it is the
Market value.
Is that the market value and the housing?
yeah that's
Okay.
so one's MVA market value analysis and the other is median value
I
income.
want to make sure that was included.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's also about 2 or 3 different maps that you guys looked at as well, and probably about 20 different Excel spreadsheets that you could drop on there. This is just showing the types of things. It's not a comprehensive list of
I was
everything.
going to make sure that we had the income, the average household income, and then the housing value data
Yeah.
that we looked
It
at.
is very small on this, so if that's something you'd like a different
To
way.
go deeper in, then
we-
that
we
would be
could
an
do that.
additional slide. Do you want, are you,
No, I just want to make sure it's included in the data and that it's pointing out in the presentation.
We can also take those things like that and put them at the end of the presentation, and if a question would come up, we can shuttle to them relatively quickly.
and what we talked about is, we definitely, we can embed almost like an appendix type section in the slide deck, just for quick reference, but also in the printed report. I've requested that there is a written report that accompanies the slide deck that will have all of our data points listed as well. They'll be outlined as well, Commissioner Adams.
You guys suggested as well that the historic nature of redistricting, you want it up here before we get into the data?
Yes, so after we move through the introductions, I'll toss it to you for that overview. So just
Okay.
to be able to go through that, and then we'll come back to the guiding principles. So one of the commissioners will be able to do slide 3. Zamora's already set for slide 4, and then we were on slide that we also need, so on and so forth down the road.
I'm not sure if you guys added anything to these. These were just the quick notes that I took or these are the quick points that I took from my notes, with the full intention of you guys making sure that I got everything you wanted on there, and we added to that. So if these are elements that you guys want additional comment on, this and probably the next slide, depending on whether or not you guys change the order or not, are really where your voice comes through on how your priorities and decisions fell in place.
Yeah, so just what I have been doing is in my review of those that were able to send me their comments, looking to make sure that that's on there. But I'll also look to the commissioners, especially those that have articulated their thoughts, to see if there's anything in addition you want to have on that. Also recognize that not everything will be itemized, so the commissioner who would like to articulate in this can also, you'll have some additional leeway on the priorities.
Oh, I would like to suggest, well, I don't think everything has to be itemized. I think that it should be, because I think we all made this commitment and we adhere to it as we did the map, and that is, we made an effort to consolidate Latino population in the 4th district. We didn't just make it general. It says general there, that's a general statement, create boundaries that enhance Hispanic representation. Well, that's something that, general overview, but we made a specific commitment
For the 4th district.
to consolidate, increase the Latino population in the 4th district. I
Okay.
think that.
We
And
can
that
add
could be, it could be added to one of those points, or, but I think it's separate and distinct from the one that says the maintain 3rd and 5th districts, black African-American majority. I would suggest that we have a bullet point that says that we made a commitment to consolidate the Latino population and increasing the Latino population in the 4th district.
I think that second bullet point in section 1 can be expounded. Create boundaries that enhance
Yeah, right.
Latino representation in District 4.
Equal opportunities.
Equal opportunities. Can you say more about that?
Just in my homework, I haven't passed over to you.
Your dissertation, I saw those 5 pages.
A lot of it is thanks to this commission body that, coming into this, I was very nervous about who I was representing. And not only just the Latino population, but all the immigrant, non-English language, and non-citizens. But this commission took it upon themselves to really make me feel it was a commitment and a goal and objective to consider it equal opportunities for the population. They are counted, and they are part of our city. And thank you very much. I wanted to share that.
Thank you. So once again, friends, speak up for your preferred slide. Zamora's gonna take them all.
No, just piggybacking on Commissioner Adams.
To kind of piggyback on Commissioner Adams' request that we kind of parse out that create the bullet point pertaining to the Latino representation and make it its own section, because the Latino population in the city is not concentrated enough to invoke the
To be
Voting
under
Rights
Voting
Act. I
Rights,
think
right.
that covers us if we kind of parse
Pull
that
that
out
out.
and still state it as a consideration,
Absolutely.
but not one under the Voting Rights Act. So I'll make a note of that.
Great. All right. Any other considerations? Like I said, you don't have to necessarily articulate them now, but in your follow-up to our meeting, please make sure that you send that and copy Melissa if you can, so that we can share some accountability in that. All right, slide 8. This is a continuation of some of the key pieces that we can put down. Once again, we'll have bullet points. And this is not all or nothing, meaning it doesn't just have to be one commissioner that can take, especially this particular slide, that each commissioner can have some time to be able to articulate that. We'll follow our good etiquette and best practice with bullet points. We're not gonna have 1,000 bullet points on this, but if you can give an overview of maybe some of your key points, then when it is your time to speak, we'll have an abbreviated time. So we're looking for a very succinct articulation of this, but that you would be able to express some key. And we can tag team them, meaning we don't want to be redundant on the same ones, but we can collectively share our thoughts.
Is this rationale and considerations,
Yeah,
which
the
needs an
rational.
E? Otherwise, we
Right.
could have another slide for all the irrational ones.
Right, this is the rational, is
It'd be
rationale.
about 5 or 6 slides, probably.
So, thank you. That's funny. I think we joked about that this morning. All right. So that is another to-do piece, if you have any particular. And if not, there's no expectation that every commissioner needs to say something or has something on this, but I want to create a space that if you are interested. Yes.
I'm not sure if this is a separate slide, but, all of us, I think, read the online comments that come in and listen at the hearings we've had. But I think it would be helpful at some point to list some of the challenges separately so that they're not just considerations, but they were challenges that all of us had to overcome, and you can't change them.
Yep.
And I think that's a hard thing to follow through these meetings and these conversations that, it's a challenge that we have 4 other cities inside our city limits, and we have 14 school districts, and all those things that we all had to work with or around or accommodate. And we don't need to make those, arguable. They're just the challenges we have, like our geography and the fact that we've added 10,000 people or 6,000 people per district, that kind of thing.
I think it ought to be addressed, and I think you ought to be the one to address it.
Hey. Is that a volunteer or a voluntold?
I'm volunteering her for that. She's done a good job of pointing that out. And as a developer, and then as with your history here in the city, in the planning department and development department, you bring a lot of what's the right word I want to say, fidelity and heft to that presentation. I think it's very important because it did affect, it did approach all those challenges with the school districts, like you said earlier, with the cities being within the city limits and all that. I think it deserves its own slide, or at least as part of one of those bullet points that you ought to. We may not need a slide on it, but I think you ought to address those. I mean, somebody should address.
No, we're fine with adding a slide. We'll do that. And Commissioner Notice did a masterful job in her write-up.
Did she have my name to it?
Ooh, honey. We all want a piece of that. It was masterful.
Yeah.
So I think that Commissioner Notice, it would be great if you could pick up that challenge section, and we'll create its own slide. And if you could share in a bullet point your articulation is in a narrative form. If you could just bullet point those, then we'll add those. And what we'll do, because we also, there's an element of kind of just how we have been vibing, that if anybody has anything that you want to add to that, there'll be space and room for you to do it. So I don't want it to feel like it is just so rigid that you won't be able to join in. But Notice, if you can take the lead, that'd be great.
I'm flattered, but okay.
You knew that that's where we were going with it.
Don't raise your hand to say anything else or go to the bathroom. It's going to be your turn.
And then, of course, part of the considerations, either on the considerations, and it could also be in the challenge, mentioned in the challenge, is the recommendation for a charter review. So just know that will be placed between one of those 2 slides, or both. We recognize it as a challenge and also a consideration that we will share for the council. Yes.
I have kind of a question and a proposition. What if we made that its own slide?
We can.
To kind of close with that, because it is an overarching consideration that has come up in each one of our meetings, and it is really important. And so, just kind of throwing that out on the floor.
I'm fine with that. Any objections? I would like to say it does not have to supplant the fact that we want to name it as a challenge, in addition to, and give it its own space to have it as a recommendation. Any thoughts? Good. Okay. What else is missing? I love that we've added this challenge slide. What else would you like to be considered?
It was a common geographical boundary that was brought up, and even in the Northland, when I looked at the video, is that the delicate tension of the truce boundary and what that means in our districts, moving forward, I mean, that poses a challenge in some cases. And for a committee like ours that, we didn't allow that to be a tension, but we took care not to try to crack that population or break that trend, but that's something that would be in our charter review moving forward and how we look at the growth of our city, the changes.
And not continuing that narrative piece. Okay.
I think Commissioner Llewellyn said it the best, and I reiterate this when I talk to folks, is that balloon. You do, you're stuck in one area for growth. What do you move people?
I want to lift up, thank you, Commissioner Zamora. Commissioner Day also sent a very thoughtful written analysis. Anything in yours that you want to make sure especially gets lifted up?
I don't know. I mean, not looking at this slide and how it's, I guess, you're presenting a separate written report too. That's kind of what I was envisioning in sending that little blurb about how the 6th district kind of came together. So that, I mean, the items that I ticked off last week are here in the slide. So
Okay.
I think it's fine.
And what we can do, because I think that should be part of the conversation. So we'll go to the report piece because your perspective came in at this very kind of historical analysis and kind of bringing us, which I thought was just really thoughtful and moved us through it and kind of put it in a perspective that I thought was really valuable. So we'll talk about that report piece. Anything else from the slide deck perspective? Once again, we'll use the same slide deck and presentation for both times on the 7th and 9th.
So the remaining pieces of it are really, so this gets us to the process. Now we're really talking about numbers, what we went through, with the challenges you guys had with balancing those numbers. You could push this up in the history.
This is what I'd like to be pushed up.
Yeah, this should be.
You could definitely do that.
Yeah, everything after that last slide is what I would like for you to do in your overview.
Okay.
So a small piece, that's what I meant by the overview, the historical overview.
And
then this kind of setting the stage of where we're at.
Super easy. I'll send that to you guys in that order. And then we really just talk about the selected map. And that's about where this presentation, unless you guys added some, kind of goes through. We probably don't need all of this. This kind of discussed, this was set up if you were viewing the maps on your own, but it is relevant to show people the amount of information that you guys asked for, which I thought was very thoughtful in nature, and how it also, helped the general public when they could see it work through those things. So we can add that as well, or we can pare it down, whatever you guys, it gets very technical at some point. So we'll add it. If you guys want to knock it down, we'll knock it down, but that's pretty much it.
I would like to see we actually go through the selected map and then come back to the closing with and end with the recommendation, kind of the big recommendation of reviewing the charter, and to be able to close out in that way. So somewhere that this overview or moving through the selected map is in the interior of the presentation and not that we're ending with it. Other considerations or consideration different than that you'd like to share?
Madam Chair, I definitely think that these are points that you and Commissioner Zamora have eloquently stated these more than I would, so there's no need to throw my name as a person to say this.
We don't need that preamble.
We don't need that. But there are 2 points that I'm thinking about. Maybe it's in the rationale and considerations. One is that I was reflecting on many of the comments that either were submitted online or that we heard publicly. A lot of requests for boundary shifts was born out of this feeling of not being heard and their feelings of not having their representative present and engage with them. And so I don't know how to lift this up as definitely understand taking politics out of this process, but for the meetings that I attended, only Councilwoman Raina Park Shaw and Mayor Lucas have popped into those. And
Fowler came here.
and I must have missed Ballard.
Yeah.
So I just think I'm asking myself, is this an opportunity for elected officials to sit and listen? Because so much of what I experienced in terms of community feedback from the 5th or the 6th was like, I don't feel like I'm heard. I don't feel my representative. Same thing we saw in the 2nd. And having been a formal council person, I know how difficult it is to be everywhere and to talk to everybody. So this is not a an indictment on anyone, but I do think that being visible, being present, and listening, and this is an excellent opportunity to hear from the constituents that voted for you about what they would like to see and hear differently. And so a lot of comments at least resonated from that angle. The second is Commissioner Zamora and Commissioner Notas talked a lot about this tension between like neighborhoods and community and then growth or development of an area, and how sometimes those are at odds when they should work together. And so as we think about growth, as we think about the development, as we think about creating a city that everyone wants to live, work, and play, how do we balance those in a way where neighborhoods are still important and it's not one or the other,
Right.
it's not at the expense, right? We need development to encourage people to come and want to move into our city, but we also need people to want to live and feel valuable and connected to the city to stay. And so as we were drawing these lines, I heard Commissioner Zamora and Commissioner Notas talk about that, and I think they'll do a better job of explaining that and putting a fine point, but I think that's something that needs to be elevated.
As you just did, that
I don't have a
articulation.
rationale
I was just
for why
trying
it
to
should
make
be.
sure. Totally agree. And once again, if you can just bullet point that, Dr. Hill, and make sure you send that. That way we can literally begin to drop those considerations. And as on our time of presentation, once again, we can float around and we can, tag team on those points. But I absolutely agree. Also want to lift up Commissioner Rucker. You sent your thoughts via bullet point already, so we'll be able to add those. So I'll be sending a follow-up email requesting and reminding each of you to send your challenges, rationale, and considerations in bullet point form, and categorize them in that way, so that Melissa, and I also want to shout out her fellow that she will be engaging to help bring all this together and be the author in many ways and kind of bring our ideas together. I want to thank that person in advance. Any other thoughts or considerations? Commissioner Llewellyn, anything from?
I think you guys are doing a great job so far.
I want to make sure that we get you the right slide. So feel free to.
I just want to mention, I just looked at the schedule. I do have conflicts on both the
Okay.
7th and the 9th. Not 100% that I can get out of or not, but I don't think necessarily my attendance of that would change the presentation at all. I actually think that some of the fellow commissioners actually would present better than me. Our thoughts as a unit, so I'm not saying I'm not going to be there. I said there could be a potential conflict, so I kind of like to step aside on the actual presentation part of it.
Thanks for that update. Commissioner Kellum?
Yeah, I would echo what Commissioner Llewellyn just said. I think that good information, good points brought forward. I do have conflicts on both of those dates as well. For sure, on the 9th, I will not be able to be there. The 7th, I'll have to work to try to do something. So as far as the commitment of anything outside of that, I would be in the same position, unfortunately.
Well, we'll miss you all's voices, so I'll be rooting for something to change, so that you can make sure that your voice and can be a part of it. Commissioner Rucker, any additional?
No, ma'am.
All right. How are you doing down there, Commissioner Adams?
I'm in a similar position as Mike and Chris. I think I can make it on the 7th since it's been put back to 1 o'clock. It's highly unlikely that I'll be here on the 9th. I have something scheduled for 1:30. that I don't think, I'm gonna make an effort to reschedule, but I don't think I'll be able to. I am gonna submit I'm gonna submit what you say, challenges, rationale, and considerations. I will submit that, try to get that submitted within the next 24 or 48 hours. Because I think there's some things that, at least I have some narrative that I hope to be included, to be addressed. And Reed may have already addressed this. I did not see his submission. But I think it's important. He said something very compelling early on in this process about just boiling down to representation. And that kind of stuck with me, and it kind of like guided me as I went through, because I had not been thinking about that, at least not in the context that he expressed it in. So I don't know if what he said captured that, but I'm going to probably write something that what it meant to me, and how I think it was not a challenge so much as a rationale and a consideration that led me to make the decisions I did in the configuration of the map with respect to each of the districts, but especially with respect to the horizontal configuration of the Northland District and with the district, south of there. I think it's also important, and I think Vicki may address this, and it may come out during Vicki's presentation, is that once you make the commitment to have majority black districts in 3 and 5, it impacts everything else around it, and it forces the 6th district to go north. Then we look at the housing patterns that we had in the growth in the 1st district, in the 4th district. We do that, it forces the 4th district further north of the river. So I want to make sure that those things are addressed, and also something about communities of interest. We haven't talked about that much, but it's related to the representation part, and to how this map reflects, I believe, our commitment to having communities of interest, to maintaining communities of interest, or reuniting communities of interest, and that lead up to what's in the best interest of the city. And I think that should be the overarching thing, or the last principle that we have, that we presented a map that adheres to the principle of one person, one vote. We protected the minority voting interests with respect, as mandated by the Voting Rights Act. We've expanded that and taken that farther by trying to address a wrong, I guess, or at least a problem that's being created with the lack of equitable Latino representation on the council, by trying to consolidate as much of the Latino community as we possibly could under the restraints that we have, or constraints that we have, and that's what we've done, and all this is in the best interest of the city. So I'm going to try to see if we can, that any narrative presentation or anything that's going to, I think should reflect those points that I just articulated.
Right. Well, I'll definitely look forward to your submission. And anything that you put in narrative that you want to also be included in the slide deck, I'll ask that you bullet point that, so that we won't, especially if you're not going to be able to be there, I want to make sure that we catch your.
Well, that's why I'm kind of reluctant, because I hate to, make all these suggestions, then I can't be here to do it. Can't take a
Right.
slide. I'm not trying to create work for other people.
Right. No, we welcome
can't
that,
take it.
though. We're
I won't be able
fine.
to do a slide presentation. I can do it on the 7th, but I can't do anything on the 9th.
Okay. So I'm going to note that you feel like you're going to be there on the 7th, but not the 9th.
Yeah, I have
That'd be true for you,
a 12 o'clock, so I think I can be here by 1 o'clock. I have a 12 o'clock off-site. But I think I can be here by 1 o'clock. I couldn't be here by 12:30.
Okay.
I can't be on the 7th, but I can be on the 9th, so
So y'all
if you're
can tag
not, I
team?
can
Okay.
take that slide and points.
So you're the 9th, not the 7th.
I am the 9th. not the
Okay.
7th.
Thank you. Rucker, I wasn't clear on you.
I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to either. I've got a similar, I've got some things that I think I can slide. I just haven't confirmed it yet.
Okay. If you all can just let me know, just so we can be clear on what to expect, and we'll go from there. So please be thinking about that and send those 3 things. Those are our 3 requests. If you can send that, today is Wednesday, so if you can have those in by the end of Friday, close of business on Friday, that'll be really helpful. You all think that'll give some time? Because that 7th is gonna come quick.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. But if
So
we get
it-
everything by the close of business on Friday, we should be able to plug the bullet points into slides, and then, of course, in the margins, we'll be continuously working on the report.
Okay.
And we should have time to incorporate the bullet points into the report, depending on how the draft looks, within the next couple of days. So that sounds good to me.
So, Melissa, in kind of transitioning to that, can you give a little bit of framing for the written report that we discussed this morning?
Absolutely. And so I've requested from Emily, and she's going to try to look on the server for me, but a copy of the report from 2011, just to give a point of reference.
Can I pause and acknowledge and
Yes.
thank Cal? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And to Brian and your team as well. Thank you.
To give us a point of reference, but from what I've heard, it's just a more fleshed out version of the key considerations, rationale, and challenges that led the commission in its entirety to the proposed map, including, proponents for certain things that ended up in the final map, but also, the adversaries to some of the things that ended up in the final map. So we plan on covering all of that. To be candid, Commissioner Notice, you got us off to a great start.
Yes, you did. Y'all, when I say
Got
it
us
was
off
the
to a
bomb,
great start, and
it was
read a
the
lot of
bomb.
your historical context was amazing as well, especially as it pertains to the 6th. And Martin, for kind of like the adversary to
Yep.
the alternate perspective for the final map, we will definitely be sure to include that as well. So if you have anything else that is at the top of your head that will be in the PowerPoint that you would also like to see in the written report, please send that over to both Stephanie and I. We are working on that, but like she said, the second will come quick, and we would like to have the written report ready simultaneously with the PowerPoint presentation.
And like I said, Commissioner Zamora showed me several pages that he had last week. Once you send that to me, we're gonna incorporate that as well.
I'm going to bullet point it, but
And you can still send your narrative
I'll
down.
send the narrative. I'll break it down into bullet points.
So can I ask a question? How are we going to address the, I guess, the concerns about the final configuration? Is there going to be a section in there that addresses what Martin and Mike have to say about that, or
Yes.
it's going to be like a minority report? Is there comments? How is it going to be?
Well, it will be reflected that the majority voted for the horizontal configuration, but there was a minority that had an alternate view, and we will spell out what
The
that
reasons
alternate
that-
view is.
That's exactly right.
That's fair.
Yeah.
And so you guys will be the final edits if we submit things and they're repetitive, or somebody said it better than somebody else, you guys will take care of that part.
Yes, we'll be streamlining everything so that it's not repetitive and it has a good read.
You're going to
I
take
think that-
everything we submit and make it into a final?
Yes.
Then use your own judgment and everything and put together.
Precisely. And of course, circulating it back to you all, because this is your
I
report.
will circulate it back.
Yes.
I think there's going to be some overlap
Oh,
between all
absolutely.
three of the things we are writing about, and then people are going to say it in different ways, so.
Well, we've already had that, and so in just what the submissions have already been, and I want to. I'm not a credit crook, so I want to be clear that the city will be writing that. They will send that to me. I will read draft and send that. So I don't want to take credit for anybody's work. So I won't be penning it myself, but I will be working with them. And then we'll make sure that we're in strict compliance as I send that out to you all for also your considerations for those that have time to take a look at it.
So
And the-
what about the section on the, or will it be, well, it won't be a section, it'll be a plank or comment or something about the recommendation with respect to the Charter Review Commission? How detailed is that gonna be? This is gonna be a general recommendation that's based upon the challenges that we had or input that we received? We think the city should appoint a Charter Review Commission?
Yes.
How detailed do you want that to be?
As detailed as you all would like. I mean, I planned on citing the section of the city charter that requires a commission to be appointed for the charter to be changed. And then I think a lot, we've discussed at length the rationale and the reason behind needing the appointment of a charter review commission. But if you have any additional ways you want to spell that out, we can also flesh that out in that section.
Can I ask a question of the legal staff? If the city sets up a charter review commission, can you limit the scope of what you're talking about to just this? And if somebody wants to change the charter for some other reason, that would be a different commission, or once you set one, it's gates open for anything?
I do not know the answer to that question, and I can check to see if the charter that we have specifically speaks to that. If I had to guess off the top of my head, it is that we probably don't do that very often, constraining it to specific issues, just because it is an expansive, expensive, timely process to review the charter, and I have to imagine that it's kind of like not a thing you want to do every 2 years. But that is just, you would probably have as much background on that as I would. And so I will look into that and we can get you an answer.
I think
great
if the
question.
answer is, once you have one, all things are open for changing, then I think it would probably affect the kind of process you'd have to be able to still get this thing done in
Right.
time to have any effect, which is what I think most of us felt was important. I don't know if that was unanimous, but I think most people felt this is going to be hard, the same thing's going to be hard to do in 10 more years.
The recommendation or the charter review, is that what you're speaking about? A commission that would look at the charter?
Yeah. And I know those are very difficult to do, and they end up with, lots of issues and subjects on the table. So, and there might be some other way to do that, I don't know, but we should explore it.
And what this commission would simply be saying is that we encourage the council to take that into consideration and to navigate that process, figure that out. But it is definitely a component that many of us believe is important, and that pose the challenge. Because there are only 6 councilmatic districts, then, and because representation has been an issue, that the sheer number of people within one district. So all of that is connected to that thought. Other thoughts or questions about the report? Melissa and her designated fellow will be synthesizing the information and also leveraging the notes that have been taken throughout this process, in addition to Cal's notes. And we'll be able to put that together, and then we'll be able to get you all's feedback. And ideally, those two things will go in tandem so that the council can have some additional context and information to review.
Can I would appreciate a report or a copy of the old report that was submitted. If we can dig that up. One of my things is I'd like to see kind of, before I go off on a roving, long writing process. I'd also like to see Vicky's. It sounds like that was one of the most comprehensive. I sent you, and I guess for everybody else's perspective, all I did was talk to Chris, and we put together something that just said kind of, here's what the 6th district is facing, here's the changes, and why, the Hickman Mills issue, and then the plaza. And both of those are historic shifts. I went back and verified that. The 6th district has always been from east to west on the bottom portion of the city. It's no longer that way. I think that's a historic shift that should be noted. And the plaza in the 6th district is a historic shift. It's never not been with some combination of choose your 55th, 59th, or whatever, up through a little bit of downtown. That's always been that way. So I tried to note that in what I was saying, but then otherwise it was just simply hey, we found this line on Grandview because we're trying to find the balance of the population with the 3rd and the 5th, and then on the plaza, we had the conversation about Southmoreland and Hyde Park. It was 3 paragraphs of just noting what was going on in the 6th district. So if Clinton, if you want me to write something more of an intro about representation, I can do that. But what I don't want to do is rehash everything that Vicky's already written or anything like that, because I don't have time to do that.
I think your issue about representation is different than what Vicky wrote. Vicky did write I did see Vicky's stuff, and it was compelling and very persuasive. I thought it was very well done. But I don't think it addressed the representation issue that you talked about in one of our early meetings that you talked about.
Sure, that's fine. I'm happy to write some of those narratives. I just, where they get plugged in, I don't want to write.
That made me more responsive to the concerns that the people made out in Hickman Mills, and also the concerns that the people raised at the Northland, the people in the Northland raised about the people who live south of Berry Road and their concern.
Mine
And I
doesn't get
definitely
very
can pay for that.
detailed on the specific changes that we ended up with and how we got, a little bit, but not all. But if we can send it, I'm happy to share this, to send this out to everybody. And then if you send an email back that says regarding the 6th district, put your stuff in there.
Okay.
And I assume we can figure that
I like
out.
to see everything that everybody submitted, if people are comfortable in submitting them out, if they don't mind sharing them with everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I'm happy to send those out as I do our regular updates and reports. And I appreciate the energy and the time that commissioners are willing to put into this. I also want to remind us that the city staff will continue to be in the capacity that they've been across this process. So they have been really been able to do a good portion of this assembly. So I don't want you all to think that you need to
Yeah.
supplant that. However, it is just through my interest and respect for the brain trust that has been around this table that I want to just extend the opportunity for you all to add your voice to it. But this is not for you all to feel like you have to become authors. The city will take the lead on that. But submit that, and we will work together to get
That being
it.
said, Madam Chair, our comments are public domain.
Say it again.
Our submitted comments are public domain.
Well, once it is sent out, I mean, that's a legal question, but I will say that whatever you submit that will be part of what I send you all on a weekly piece, expect for it to be open.
I would
I
think
would
if
not
there
be
was
surprised.
quorum on there, right, then it would be public. But if
Excuse
you
me?
just sent, I said if there was quorum on the email that you sent, then it would be public. But if you just sent an email, I think to the chair, that wouldn't be.
Well, no, I think
Once I
it
send
will
it
all be in the abyss of
Yeah.
stuff that is sunshineable.
Right.
So, yes, even though there wouldn't be a quorum on the email, if somebody submitted a sunshine request, it would fall within that relevant description.
Right, whatever's already been submitted, like Vicky's piece, she submitted already.
Yes.
If I wanted it, I could ask the sunshine request, you have to give it to me. It's
Absolutely.
public information. Mm-hmm. Once we submitted it, yeah. So I wouldn't mind seeing all of them if we could, but, whatever, I'm gonna send mine, whatever I see, it's certainly public information, I don't care.
Right.
Who gets it?
I would also note that when I was doing this, trying to keep the rationale and the considerations kind of separate. And I think now that we have challenges in there, that's also still true. But people should look at any of this to make sure it's a fair statement. I mean, we did have a lot of disagreement, and we had a lot of stuff go back and forth, which I didn't note, but I mean, we have that in the report. But I think, especially if people have a time to glance at it, just make sure it's a fair statement. And if it's not, send in an edit to me or to us so that we can make sure it's representative of everybody on here.
Absolutely. Other thoughts? We've talked through the slide deck. I'll add one more task request, and that is for commissioners to identify which slide right now. Let's see, the slide 4 and then the challenges section, which is not a numbered slide yet, have been taken up, but would love the rest. And so I'll even note that. Guess when we send out the other pieces, we can send out the slide deck, and I can put on there. And the ones that are highlighted are the ones that are still open for someone. So if you can have multiple slides if you're interested in that.
Madam Chair, I understand how the considerations and alternate perspectives around the map will be shared in its written format, but I'm still wanting to understand when you get to the slide of why this was the chosen map, the narrative that comes with that piece. And so if we have time to think of, to talk through that, and the reason why is I am trying to balance in my mind the ideas, how complex representation became through this process, right? And how that was balanced with it's like equal population size, but I think many of the folks who voted for this configuration of the map were talking about how do you provide for an equitable voice within this equal proportion of a council district. And so I know that Reed will talk about that. Certainly, that's what a lot of us heard. And certainly, when you look at the map, having been on the Health Commission, if I were to overlay life expectancy over this map, and we will see how the correlation with the lower socioeconomic. And so when we think about growth, and I think a larger imperative for me is if we don't invest in these parts of the city that have been divested in for so long, if we don't create better housing stock or infrastructure, then we will get to a place where growth can only happen in a part of an area. And, I'm trying to balance that. And I think that beyond the map, and here are 6 districts that, for the most part, this is my perspective, not anybody else and not the commission's, Cokeithia Hill. Those lines drawn are not going to change my personal life significantly in any way. But the ability to invest in my community and my neighborhood and having an opportunity to elect someone that values that and will work hard for that, that's to me the larger kind of imperative of why this is important. So I'm just wondering, I think that either way, folks can say, vertical, horizontal, or shift this boundary here and there, but ultimately, what do we want our council members to walk away from based on the work that we've done here and the people that we've talked to and how we see this stratification around economics in our city? Why we can't move over to cross the truce boundary, which so many people desperately want to, right? But the reality of it is there's not much housing stock available to the east side of the city to live on that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't want to go on a tangent. I just want to make sure that it is that, when we have this platform, that we're not walking away just talking about boundaries, but we're talking about people. And we're talking about our city and a way to make it better.
And all of that should be articulated in not only your bullets, but any narrative that you submit. I mean, because that is the story that we're telling. So as impassioned that you shared that, what you submit is the story. Your question, though, about once we get to the slide that has the map selection, how we will choose to do that. Now, mind you, the slides can either come before or after the bringing. I mean, the picture of the map selection, but that is meant to give insight into that, right? And so, but when the map is actually up, I mean, and there's a few ways that we can do it. We can go through and once again kind of open up the floor. If you recall how we did at the second round of the community session, the community meetings, where we went around and just kind of talked about the map and things that were important and key considerations. That can be the approach when the map is up. And of course, like I said, we have the bullet points. Now we're going to add the challenges, and we have the rationale and the considerations that, like I said, can either come before or after. But when that map is up, if there are some other narrative pieces that you all want to give, that can happen as well. So I'm open to how that can happen. But whatever it is, I don't want to miss our opportunity to have it plainly stated as well in the bullets. Commissioner Notais?
I think just as a suggestion that it would be helpful to people reading this, including the council, to just have a recommendation section at the end, and that it has a conclusion with everything Dr. Hill just said, and other comments that people turn in that actually are part of the recommendation, so that they see the map and explain why this is what was voted on, and it's not up for further, they can change it if they want to, but the recommendation of this commission is X, Y, Z.
You're saying for the report or in the slide deck as well?
Both.
Okay.
And then just to be clear, the points of challenge or dissension or however you want to word that, what slide will they be on? Will they be on a slide of
It's
their
gonna be
own, or
its
is it okay?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we can, I like this kind of concept of minority report, creating that space. That
Sure.
way it's distinct. And therefore we can leave the challenges for just what the challenges of the process were, and that can be distinct. So if you all are fine with that,
Yeah. I just wanted to be clear on how it was going to be presented.
will you be there to present and you want to present that slide?
If I'm able to, I would love. I think it would probably be appropriate.
Yeah. I'm saying the 3 people that voted against it said they're not going to be there. So that's why I just want to make sure that we're intentional.
I'll take your slide.
Y'all already made Commissioner Adams changed all his meetings right there. No, but I mean, I do want to name that though, that I want to make sure that it just so happens that the 3 commissioners that voted against it also are not there. So I want to be sensitive to that and make sure that we have some representation.
Sure.
So thank you.
I'm also sensitive to the fact that we voted as a commission to go to one map.
Right.
And I don't want to be that person that's dissenting during the presentation, even though I can't make it anyways. But the point being is, I understand where the vote went, and it was a process, and we did it, and we all agreed. So it is what it is.
And I agree with that as well. And I wasn't sure if there was going to be a time in there for that. That's why I hadn't really said anything at all, because you made it very clear this was one voice moving forward, and if there is no consideration for that, then there isn't. That just is what it is.
But I think both of those things can be true. The vote is the vote. It's already happened. But it is also important to lift up why there was dissension. Like, dissent is okay.
Sure.
That is what makes us healthy. And so that consideration should be not that it changes what the outcome is for this, but that it can be part of the consideration as a multitude of other decisions need to be made, that we want to make sure that whatever those concerns are, that it doesn't become true in other areas, right? Or if people feel like they will lose their voice. So I'm completely fine with that. And we are still presenting as a united front that even though we disagree, we still believe that this is something that can be good for the city, right? You all are not saying, you know what, this is terrible and it's going to be the worst thing. You're just like, I don't agree and this is why. And to me, that's different. And so
My other thought is too, the maps are very similar. So the dissension is just on one portion of the city.
Right.
So that's another thing that we commented on as a commission. We agreed, 70% of this map, we all agreed 100%.
that's right.
Well, and there was a lot of compromise in the process. I mean, that's what everybody was doing, so it wasn't like one person got their way and one person didn't get anything.
And I think that's part of the report, that there was several points of compromise. I think that was part of the articulation that I agreed in your thought about what happened with District 6, that, hey, yeah, we wanted this, but this is what happened. I mean, that's all part of it. And I think that this is a great display for our other partners in the city that are faced with challenging decisions, that we don't have to become complicit in promoting frameworks of inequity, which is making something inferior just so our thing can be superior. That did not happen here. We disagreed, we thought differently, but nobody was trying to pit or make something inferior just so their thought can be superior, and I appreciate that.
Can I ask a question to Reed and Chris about the report that you submitted? Did you all address, you talked about the major changes in the 6th. Did you talk about the fact that the 6th district, I guess historically, the 6th district has always been like the South Kansas City district, and that with this configuration, the 6th district is no longer a South Kansas City district, that because the booths have been split and everything south of, what was it, 80, at one point, everything south of 87th Street was in the 6th district. That was maybe a couple of maps ago. But even the last map, I think everything south of that 470 or something like that. I think everything south of that was in the 6th district. So do you all address that? And if not, do you think it should be addressed in there that we do? No.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, he did.
All right,
We
good.
can circulate, or Lisa or I can.
Okay.
Whatever. Yeah, we can get you a copy of what I wrote.
No, I think it's important that we point out that's one of the major changes in the district, in the map. But.
Yeah, it's not
Please
much,
add it
right?
to your bullet points, Commissioner Adams.
Okay, I did. Okay, I did. I made a note
It's
over
not,
here.
I mean, all I was trying to do was just, as if everybody would draft something short and sweet that talks about their district that they represent. That's all I was trying to do. So I didn't really go into anything else besides just saying, here's what the 6th district looks like, here's where the lines really work.
All righty. So, thank you all for your feedback and thoughts about what we can do. We have been taking notes. Melissa, thank you so much for how you will bring this together and drive it. Stay tuned for that follow-up. Once again, December the 7th, next Tuesday at 1 p.m. I'm updating this in line. At 1 p.m. Will be the presentation to the Legal Review Committee, and December the 9th at 2 p.m. is the council presentation during the business session. And then that will really conclude. Next week will completely conclude our support of this work.
Will those both be in this room, or will one be in the council chambers?
Oh, no, they'll both be in the council chambers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, they'll both be in council chambers. And just one final note from me. Please help me, help you, help us. Friday for your submissions would be much appreciated, because we are probably going to have to do some work over the weekend to make sure that we can get everything consolidated. So that would be much appreciated.
Absolutely. So with that, if we can give our city staff team members another round of applause for their support. And extend that applause to each of you. Thank you all so much. I may hold that until I get your stuff on Friday.
Well, I want to say that we need to give you a round of, we did an excellent job.
Thank you. I appreciate
Outstanding
it.
job of navigating this process and providing leadership. So,
Thank you so
I
much.
appreciate it.
I appreciate that. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. It's 34 minutes back.